All right, Lewis Clark State College history students, Professor Eric Martin here. Let's talk a little bit about Chapter 20, Enlightenment and Revolution, Europe and the Americas, and think about how you might get the most out of the documents that we're going to read for this particular chapter. This particular chapter is all primary sources. And a really simple way to go about approaching each and every source is to use the questions in the inside front cover of your book under working with the primary source. Who produced this document, when and where? And don't just come up with a name. Associate something with them. Who is this person really? Who was the intended audience for the document? You might have to figure that out, or the introduction might tell you. What are the main points of the document? And what does the document reveal about the time and place in which it was written? If you can answer those 4 questions for each of these documents, you're going to be in a good position to make contributions to the class discussion, and you're going to be in a very good position to use these documents in your formal essay in some way, shape, or fashion. That's the short version. The longer version goes like this. As we read each of these documents, you want to be answering those questions with the mission of trying to get an idea of what was the Enlightenment. And to help you along that path, the Enlightenment was an intellectual movement in which the principles of science were being applied to politics. The principles of science were being applied to politics. But not everybody was thinking about it the same way. And so you get some conflicting visions in these documents about what reason means. And reason is a code word or a characteristic of the Enlightenment. Reasoned thought. We can reason with each other and come to some kind of truth. That's the idea behind the Enlightenment. So I've actually said most of what I probably need to say, but I'm going to make this a little bit longer by going through each document and giving you just a few things to be on the lookout for as you go through this stuff. David Hume on miracles. He's got a big vocabulary. A lot of these documents have big vocabularies. Don't get put off by it. Just don't try to read them all at one shot. David Hume is one of the more important Scottish philosophers that you've never heard of. He's funny. And this whole piece is him asking or refuting the idea of miracles. And keep in mind, his point for all this, in part, is if we're going to have, science as part of our politics, there's the question about religion, and then there's the question about miracles, and what do you do with all this? He's connecting some dots here. So what does he have to think about miracles? And then you can just go on from there, and what does he think their role in politics should be? Document number 2 by Rousseau, The Social Contract. Any of you justice studies people, anybody going on in the law, you guys, what is the social contract? What's Rousseau say the social contract is? We have whole realms of political theory that our society is based on Rousseau and the social contract. Then we get into these pieces of the American Declaration of Independence. And some of y'all, maybe you read it before, maybe not. You should read it again. It is a document created out of this Enlightenment thought period. That is the context for it. So, what are the kind of ideas that it's advocating? And how is that connected to the social contract? How is that connected to Hume and his ideas? This next piece by Abigail Adams and John Adams. You got Abigail Adams questioning whether the ideas of the American Revolution are going to apply to women. So check out that conversation. It's an interesting one. Document number 5 looks at the French Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. So this is the document that comes out of the French Revolution. How is it different than the document that kicks off the American Revolution? What are some of the things that these revolutions want that are the same, and in what ways are they fundamentally different? That's an interesting thing for us to talk about. Then you have document number 6, and I can't pronounce her name very well, Gauger maybe. The Declaration of Rights for Women. So she takes issue with the French Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Again, how does this apply to women? So you can compare her to the French Declaration, but then you can also compare her to Abigail Adams. What kind of conversation would happen between those two? Are they mostly on the same page, or are they talking about different things? Then we have a couple of documents out of the Caribbean and Latin America. One of these by Le Ouverture in Haiti, which has its own revolution that's connected to the French Revolution. What do these people in Haiti want? What are they asking for? And how do they understand the idea of science being applied to politics in a slave colony, slave society? And then finally, you've got Simon Bolivar in South America, and he's responding to someone in Jamaica. But what's happening in South America? So we've got this broad range of, Europe and America and the Caribbean and South America, all going through what historians typically describe as the Atlantic revolutions that are being fueled by these ideas of the Enlightenment. So the big question for this week is, what are those ideas? And then one of the things we can talk about in class is, do you think ideas fueled the social movements? Or do you think the social movements generated the ideas? Or do you think there's somewhere in between? It's an interesting dynamic we can mess with. That's enough for right now. Again, don't forget, don't make it harder than it needs to be. Use the stuff inside the front cover of your book. See you around campus.